end of the month, and that's certainly seen end of the month trading. Very, very mixed data coming out of what we're seeing here in Asia. The Nikkei is down ever so slightly, China is up. Having a look here in Singapore, it's also fairly flat. Looking into Australia, it's down as well. Very, very hard to sort of make that, and there is a lot of window dressing certainly going on. Biggest data that came out today was always going to be what was going on in Japan, and we did see their inflation numbers doing what we expected, which was jumping up, and they were ahead of expectations, up 3.2%. Now that's the highest level since 1991, and it certainly would suggest that things are moving in the right direction. However, you do have to remember that that consumption tax is now starting to filter through, and until we see the end of next month and we see the May numbers coming out, we'll get a better indication of where they're coming. And what also happened in the last month in Japan, household spending fell by 4.2% to the lowest level we've seen in around about 4 years, and that was part of what we saw with the retail figures on Wednesday. So that really went hand in hand. Didn't really have a huge adverse effect on the dollar yen either. It moved up and then moved down and then has traded sideways for the rest of the day. So we will be watching that quite closely. Shinzo Abe is currently in Singapore today, and we've been listening to his speeches. Nothing really major coming out of him either. So fairly flat news coming out of Japan. For that reason, we've seen Asia really moving sideways over the weekend. We'll be watching what goes on in China with their official PMI. But as I said, end of the month means end of the month trading, and window dressing is certainly the key word. Looking to Asia next week, it's going to be a huge week in terms of data. Macro banks everywhere. We're also looking at what goes on in China with manufacturing. We get the final flash PMI data coming out of HSBC. We saw that obviously a lot higher than we expected. The official figures come out on Saturday. We'll be watching that quite closely. Expectations are for 50.7 on that metric, and that means that we will probably see China moving just a little bit ahead of where most people currently see them. We know what's going on with the PBOC. They are finally starting to move on a rural level at basically easing rates, so there is some form of credit growth over there. And then all about the ECB next week. There is no doubt if we do not see anything coming out of Mario Draghi on Thursday night for us over here on the east, it will be a very, very interesting day indeed for the dollar, for the euro dollar. That's pretty much the major things to watch. There's not a huge amount of news coming out of Asia on the central banks front. There's no major surprises expected, even though we see the RBA. We also see the RBA NZ reporting as well. Most of them are expected not to do anything advantageous, and for that reason they're probably going to be a relative non-event. So for that reason, the early part of next week is probably going to be fairly flat, waiting for that ECB meeting where most are expecting something major to come out of Frankfurt.